Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where it was on this day in 1989 that Ringo Starr debuted his all-star band. And this was really only meant to be a kind of one-off, but it proved so incredibly popular that it goes on until this day and has happened every year, usually in the summer, since 1989, except for 2020, when everything was horrible in the world. But hopefully, we're working on making that better. Now, this was the first time that Ringo had gone on tour since the Beatles made the decision to stop touring in '66. Although he had a pretty relatively successful solo career in the '70s and into the '80s, he wasn't really touring. And he's more than made up for it because since 1989, he's been touring non-stop. Now, what really made the All Star Band special was the fact that it was a group of legendary musicians that got together to have a hell of a lot of fun. And this was true of the original lineup, and it's true of every subsequent lineup, because ever since that original tour, the lineup changes sometimes a little and sometimes a lot from year to year. Sometimes people go and then come back. It's all really friendly. It's just a bunch of musical legends. I know that term's overused, going on the road and doing their thing. And the other thing that's remarkable about it, apart from the palpable fun, is the diversity of musicians that are involved in various all-star bands and that have been over the years. You have people from all sorts of different worlds of rock music and of soul music and of R&B music. You have the young and younger and the old and the older. You have instrumentalists of all sorts, people who sing, people who don't sing. There's almost always, well, there has always been a second drummer on stage in addition to Ringo. And I cannot tell you how fun these shows are. For people who think that it's just part of what's now referred to as the nostalgia circuit, and I suppose in a technical sense it still is, I prefer to think of it as more of a roving supergroup that changes every year, because that was really what it was intended to be, and that's really what it is. They, of course, don't write new music together, but instead they play music from the catalogs of all of the artists that were involved in the various lineups. So let me just, of course, read you the original lineup, which was supposed to be the only one because no one knew just how long this would go on for. It was, of course, Ringo. Then you had Joe Walsh, wonderful musician, James Gang, Eagles, and a big solo career, Niles Lofgren, multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist, played with Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band and played with Neil Young and Crazy Horse, the great New Orleans musician Dr. John, the wonderful, soulful, funky Billy Preston, who was no stranger to Ringo. Some called him the fifth Beatle. Rick Danko and Lee Von Helm, both of the band, another E Street alum, Clarence Clemens, and the great Jim Keltner, one of the best session drummers in the world, as the second drummer. And just going through the list of some of the people, I won't read them all, but you've got Todd Rundgren, a superstar that we've talked about on this channel, Bert Cummings of the Guess Who, a great band, Zach Starkey, who later went on to play with The Who. That, of course, is Ringo's son. Mark Farner of Grand Funk Railroad. John Entwistle played from, of course, The Who. Gary Brooker, who was one of my favorites from Procol Harum. Peter Frampton, great musician that one of my first videos was about him. Simon Kirke from the Great Bad Company and Jack Bruce of Cream. I actually saw that lineup live. And who else have we got? Just going through the list of the various people: Roger Hodgson from Supertramp, Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople, Greg Lake from one of my favorite bands, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, John Waite from The Babies, great band and great singer, Paul Carrick. What a voice. He's played with Eric Clapton, Mike and the Mechanics, Ace, Squeeze. He even played a bit with Roxy Music. Billy Squire, great musician. Rod Argent, we did a video about him on this channel. Edgar Winter, Frankenstein, Come On and Take a Free Ride. Gary Wright, the great Dreamweaver and of Spooky Tooth. Richard Page from Mr. Mister, who we've done a video on. Greg Bassinet, great session drummer, played in the early solo bands of David Lee Roth after he left Van Halen. Steve Lukather from Toto. Greg Lake from Journey, and before that, Santana. I mean, how much longer on the list are we going to go? And those are just some. Those aren't all of the names. Those are just some of the names. And so that is quite a hell of a lot of music in terms of the catalogs that Ringo can choose to take the music from. And even though Ringo is this sort of rock royalty, because the Beatles were a band that many people in many genres of music grew up grew up listening to, the whole event really does seem like a first among equals. Everyone is just happy to be there. And I've never seen an audience walk away not smiling from those shows. They're great. They'll be back. In fact, they may well be touring this summer. I need to catch up on things. I need to get out more. So happy birthday to the All-Star Band. I think one of Ringo's best creations. I'm off to eat some octopus. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Take care.